and your client's a free woman. I know, but I think there might be more to this case than meets the eye. I'm not quite sure yet, but I think there still might be a way. I'll wait for Ellen and Soren to be happy. What do you mean by more than meets the eye, Mr. Wright? I believe the question here, Your Honor, should be, why was the incriminating page torn out in the first place? Why, to destroy the evidence, I would imagine. But removing it from the notebook is the same as removing it from Mr. Sprocket's memory. Which means he wouldn't have been able to trick the police if he came under suspicion. Now, if he wanted to cover up his crime, he would have to remember that he had done it. Just what are you getting at with this line of inquiry, Mr. Wright? Yes, please explain it so that we can all understand. Yes, Your Honor. You got it, OG. The page was torn out of the notebook because he wanted to forget what happened. It was torn out by accident. Ooh, somebody else tore it out. Ooh. Oh. Oh. And I know who. Oh my god, am I gonna be right? I love it when a plan comes together. I say someone's, the criminal as a joke and it ends up being the truth. It's happened a couple times now. The incriminating page was torn out by somebody else. The only other person that had access to his notebook was Pierce. What? To be fair, we don't actually know he did it. It's just ironic that I'm gonna have to name him. Order, order. Are you claiming a third person interfered with the notebook? It's not all that surprising if you consider what's happened up until now. After both the car accident and the murder of Thomas Gloomsbury, there was always a cover-up not far behind. And who orchestrated it? But I had my notebook with me at all times. No, you didn't. Did you? Because I remember you were in a panic yesterday because you couldn't find it. That's true. So who orchestrated this particular cover-up, Mr. Wright? The one person that cares about the Sprocket reputation. God, I thought that word was wrong. If we think back over the course of the trial, it's pretty easy to guess. The one who may have tried to tamper with Soren's memories is... Pierce Nickety. He's only 26? Wow! Alright. There we go. I didn't actually know it said that. He seems to be unusually attached to the pocket watch he carries around. He's her fiancé. Yeah, I'm almost certain. Because of the pocket watch. The one who tampered with the notebook in order to manipulate Mrs. Sprocket's memory is the butler. Is Pierce Nickety. Pierce? Pierce tried to tamper with my memories? Pierce was manipulating me. Case in point, the two receptions that were held to cover up the murder. It was Mr. Nickety who directed the guests and orchestrated the entire scheme. No, it can't be. Which of my memories are mine and which have been rewritten? When did he start rewriting my memories? Who wrote this? And this? And this? And this? And this? And this? And this? Oh god. What the fuck? Bye, Soren. He literally took off. What? So his memories have been rewritten. Look, Nick, he's going back down. Oh god. My memories. Ellen. And now he collapsed. Mr. Sprocket. Bailiff, please get Mr. Sprocket to the infirmary. On the double. Jesus Christ. Mr. Sprocket has been taken to the infirmary. We don't have to worry about him running away, so let us resume where we left off. Your Honor, the defense would like to call Pierce Nickety to the stand. We already know he carried out the cover-up to protect the company and Mrs. Sprocket. What more do you want from him? This time it's different. The notebook, or rather, Mrs. Sprocket's memories have been tampered with. That means the only person who knows the whole truth is now Mr. Nickety. Don't tell me. Are you actually trying to drum up a third suspect? In order to exonerate the defendant and her groom? I'm not drumming up anything, nor do I have grounds to accuse him of anything. Yet. All I know is that Mr. Nickety is the one who knows the truth. Is the only one who knows the truth. And I think he's still hiding something. Something we don't know about yet. No grounds yet, is it? Well, Mr. Edgeworth, does the prosecution consent to calling the witness to the stand? It does, Your Honour. However, I would like a little time to talk with the witness before we do. Very well. We will break for a 20-minute recess. Dunk. So, to be continued? Of course. Well, we're now in the final stretch. We're getting there. Woo! Nice. Right, so lobby number 3. Now we'll have to face Pierce on the stand. I'm not sure if I should be surprised or not. One thing's for sure, he won't be an easy adversary. So, do you think Pierce did it? Still early to say anything at this point. But I do think he's still hiding something. Nick, why didn't you pin everything on Soren loser back there? Looks like Larry still hasn't given up on Ellen. If this Pierce guy is the real bad guy, then Soren and my Ellie will live happily ever after together. Larry, that's not the kind of thing a decent human being says. Shame on you, Larry. Oh, boo-hoo. You think I don't know? I know I have to give up on my Ellie. But Nick, promise you'll make her happy. She deserves a happily ever after. I'm sure Soren will make her happy, once all of this is said and done. The trial is about to resume, Mr. Wright. Alright, you ready, Maya? Whew. Yep, let's go. I'll be rooting for you, Nick. Boom. Alright. The final stretch, I guess. This court is now back in session. Witness, please take the stand. There he is. Please state your name and occupation. My name is Pierce Nickety. I am the Sprocket family butler. Let's get straight to the point, Mr. Nickety. Someone tore out a page from Mr. Sprocket's notebook to manipulate his memories. And that person was you, wasn't it? That is correct. What about it? Well, that was easy. So why did you do it? Why did you tamper with Mr. Sprocket's notebook? Please allow me to explain. It pains me to do this, but I will tell you the truth. It pains you? That is correct. For my testimony will go against Master Soren's wishes. Soren's wishes? What is he talking about? He's gonna pin this on Ellen. Why I tore out the page. I rushed to the Vista deck, but the crime had already been committed. I saw Miss Ellen and Gloomsbury collapsed and Master Soren writing in his notebook. Master Soren said to me, I'll take the blame for the murder. Pardon me. I'll take the blame for the murder, so please take care of Ellen. But I went against his order. I tore the page out of his notebook and hid the body. Wait a second. What Mr. Sprocket was writing in his notebook at the time, could it be? It was meant to be a confession, an admission he'd killed Gloomsbury himself. He wrote that message to take the blame for Miss Wyatt. That is correct. Master Soren did hit Gloomsbury with the timekeeper to save Ellen. Then Mr. Sprocket was the culprit after all. However, that blow did not kill Gloomsbury. That makes sense. Mr. Sprocket's injury wouldn't allow him to put much force into it. Enraged, Gloomsbury tried to attack Master Soren, who was already seriously wounded. But just in the nick of time, Miss Ellen hit Gloomsbury from behind, and finished him off, it would seem. So the one who inflicted the fatal blow was the defendant. Yes, that is correct. But Master Soren tried to take all of the blame onto himself. No way. This is pretty bad, Nick. No kidding. Pretty bad is an understatement. Well, well, Mr. Wright. It seems your decision to call Mr. Nickety has backfired. For the true culprit behind this case remains the defendant, Ellen Wyatt. Could this get any worse? But Pierce was involved in the cover-up plot. And I bet he still has something to hide. Why I tore out the page. I rushed to the Vista deck, but the crime had already been committed. I only asked for statements. Wait a minute. I thought you went to the Vista deck with Mr. Sprocket. Actually, that is not true. What do you mean? I found this out afterward, but Master Soren went to the Vista deck alone. He went out the escape hatch in the reception hall and went along the outside wall. What? You can't be serious. You mean Mr. Wright's addle-patted guess was actually correct? What's with the addle-patted? I suppose truth really is stranger than fiction. So, Mr. Nickety, when you got to the scene, you saw Mr. Gloomsbury, Miss Wyatt, and Mr. Sprocket. Is that right? That is exactly right. Okay. I saw Miss Ellen and Gloomsbury collapse to Master Soren writing in his notebook. So when you and your group arrived at the Vista deck, the murder had already been committed. That is correct. Gloomsbury had already been struck. Miss Ellen had lost consciousness, probably from the shock of the incident. And how did Mr. Sprocket appear? He was bleeding from the stab wound he'd received from Gloomsbury. Barely conscious, he was writing something in his notebook. So the mysterious third person Ellen saw really was Soren then. Master Soren said to me, I'll take the blame for the murder, so please take care of Ellen. Hold it. So Mr. Sprocket wrote a note of confession in order to take the blame for Miss Wyatt. Yes. That notebook is the only form of memory Master Soren has. So you understand what his action meant, I trust. What did it mean, Nick? To Soren, everything in that notebook is true. So Soren tried to take the blame, by altering his own memory to make himself think he did it. No. Master Soren truly loves Miss Ellen. It must have been love that made him do it. Or do that. I went against his orders. I tore the page out of his notebook and hid the body. Mr. Nickety, could you please tell this court about that in more detail? That, you say? Which part do you mean, Mr. Wright? Could you be more specific? Oh, alright. What part do I want to know more about? Hiding the body. Please tell me more about the hiding of the body. Very well. After saying he would take the blame, Master Soren passed out. That's when I hid the body. I quickly took the lift down to the hold, where I hid Gloomsbury's still warm body in the spare peggable lantern. So it was you who hid the body, not the defendant. To think Mr. Butts would move the lantern containing the body to the reception hall. Well, I did not see that coming. I don't blame you. Not even Larry can predict what Larry will do next. Maybe I should take another look at the lantern and evidence. Mr. Wright, would you like that statement to be added to the witness's testimony? Sure. Yes, please. Very well. Please add that statement to your testimony, Mr. Nickety. In the hall they hid the still warm body in the spare peggable lantern. It said to look into it. What am I looking at? Oh! Yeah, it just said there's a bloodstain on the inside wheel. As if somebody gripped it with a bloody hand. Objection! Could it be? Is that what happened? If what I'm thinking is true, then maybe I can prove neither Ellen nor Soren did the deed. Mr. Nicody, you said the body was still warm when you hit it, correct? So then, what if Mr. Gloomsbury was still alive when you went to put his body in the lantern? Inside the lantern? What? What? That's preposterous. Oh, he would have suffocated. Actually, this shows that the victim might have still been alive while inside the lantern. I'm afraid you'll have to point out which part you're talking about, Mr. Wright. This part here shows that the victim might have still been alive inside the lantern. Yeah, the handle. As you can see, the back end of the lantern is a door. Or at the back end. Oh no, there we go. And there's blood here on the wheel handle. That bloodstain must have gotten there when the witness put the body inside the lantern. It in no way shows that the victim drew his last breath while he was within the lantern. I disagree, Mr. Edgeworth, for you see, in putting this lantern back together, the police inadvertently placed the inside handle on the outside and vice versa. In other words, the wheel handles got swapped. Oh my, so they got swapped? Yes, they got swapped. What? But that's ridiculous. Not at all. If you compare the other male peggable lantern in the reception hall, it's quite obvious the wheel handles were attached backwards. The detective in charge of the restoration will see me in my office later. Sorry, Emma, and good luck. There we go. God, it's like it won't click. In that case, what does this bloodstain on the wheel handle mean? The bloodstain didn't get there by chance. When the victim was put inside the lantern, he was only unconscious, not dead. When he regained consciousness, he probably tried to get out of the lantern. So he grabs the inner wheel handle, and that's when the blood got on it. This proves that the victim was still alive when he was inside the lantern. At the time, I was completely convinced Gloomsbury was dead. Had I checked more carefully, he might have survived. Unfortunate, to be sure, but not significant enough to change this trial's outcome. Again, I disagree, Mr. Edgeworth. It actually has a very significant impact on this case. The victim was struck by the defendant, then died from his injuries some time later. There's nothing more to it. That's where you're wrong. Let's take another look at Mr. Gloomsbury's autopsy report, shall we? Please focus on the description of his injuries. Cause of death, cerebral hemorrhage from a strong blow to the head. One contusion was found on the back of his head and one on the side. The blows were caused by the same weapon. It says one contusion was found on the back of the head and one on the side. Yes, the one Mrs. Sprocket gave him, and the one Miss Wyatt delivered to finish him off. No, the defense would like to submit a different interpretation. A different interpretation? The victim was knocked unconscious by the first blow, and was then put into the lantern. Then, what about the lethal blow by the defendant that the witness was talking about? Yes, well, that didn't happen. After some time, when the victim regained consciousness and tried to get out of the lantern, that's when he received the second blow that finished him off. taking into account the fact that the victim was alive for a period after the first hit, and that he did receive a second blow to the head, it does seem entirely possible. Yes, as long as the first blow didn't kill the victim instantly, then there's a possibility that someone other than Mr. Sprocket or Miss Wyatt delivered the fatal blow. That's all you've got? Even if there was a time lag between the two blows, the prosecution's position doesn't change. What? What do you mean? It's elementary, dear Watson. Mr. Wright. After the reception, when the defendant was cleaning up the reception hall, the victim who was supposed to be dead suddenly came out of the lantern. The defendant grabbed the murder weapon which was right there and finished him off. That theory sounds awfully familiar. Of course it does, Your Honour, because it's exactly what I proposed at the very start. The second blow was inflicted by the defendant, after all. I see. It seems a tangle of mysteries was unravelled into a single thread. But as long as there's a possibility that the fatal blow was delivered by a third person, then we must continue the deliberations. Give it up, Mr. Wright. Unless you have something to prove the presence of your precious third person. Okay, Nick, just relax. You can do this. Come on now, take some deep breaths. Good idea. Deep breaths. Deep breaths. There, don't you feel better already? Maya's right. I should calm down, get my focus back and go over everything again. And then hopefully I'll be able to find something to prove there was a third person. Let's see. First, why did Gloomsbury attack Ellen? Because he was tired of taking the blame for the accident? But something about that line of reasoning just doesn't feel quite right to me. No, how come? Well, if it's just a personal vendetta, he had already stabbed Soren. So why then was he so determined to go after Ellen? You're right. This whole thing feels too premeditated for a crime of passion. Why the hell has that popped up? But Gloomsbury didn't seem to have a personal grudge against Ellen. If Gloomsbury didn't have a personal reason to attack Ellen, then he was just following orders. You've taken long enough, Mr. Wright. Now it's time for some action. What proof do you have that a third person was involved? Alright, I'll show you. Not completely sure of what I'm doing yet, but it looks like I'm out of time. This piece of evidence proves the involvement of a third person. I get it now. Now I see why this note bothered me so much when I first saw it. It looks like a note outlining the murder plot. That note was apparently written by the victim. But why would he feel the need to write instructions to himself like this? Your Honour, please take a look at this note. This is the victim's murder plan, right? It's definitely a murder plan, but what if Mr. Gloomsbury didn't write this note himself? What? This is how you intend to conjure up your mysterious third party, Mr. Wright? Can you even prove that that note wasn't written by the victim? Yes. Yes, I can. Very well then. Please present your evidence, Mr. Wright. This evidence proves the victim didn't write the note. Oh, it'll be the candelabra. Because he's left-handed. Dominant hand. This is the weapon Mr. Gloomsbury used to stab Mr. Sprocket. I was wondering what you'd pull out this time. Dare I ask what you could possibly have to do with the note? What that could possibly have to do with the note? Mr. Gloomsbury's prints were found on this candelabra, and the prints were from his left hand. So, that makes the victim left-handed, correct? Exactly, Your Honour. The police looked into it too and confirmed as much. Now take a look at the smudged writing in the note. Notice how the smudging only starts from the middle of each preceding line. Had this been written by a lefty, the writing would have been smudged from the far left end. This means that whoever wrote this note was definitely right-handed. In other words, somebody other than the victim wrote this note. What? But if someone other than Mr. Gloomsbury wrote it, then what does this note mean? Mr. Gloomsbury followed this note to the letter when he attacked Miss Wyatt. So clearly, this note isn't a murder plan written by Mr. Gloomsbury, but rather, these are instructions to kill Miss Wyatt issued by somebody else. If it wasn't the victim who wrote these so-called instructions, then who wrote it? Most of the people involved are right-handed, you know. He is correct, the majority of the family and their employees who were on the airship are indeed right-handed. I must say, that is a very rough and slipshod conjecture you've proposed. I admit I haven't figured out who wrote it just yet. Leave it to Mr. Edgeworth to go for the jugular. This culprit who ordered Gloomsbury to attack Ellen. What could their motive have been? Doesn't seem very likely Ellen did anything to incur anybody's wrath, right? Right, not too likely anyway. In that case, it has to be about Soren. If somebody were to hold a grudge against Soren, what would it be about? That accident, I guess. Could understand if Gloomsbury felt resentful about having to take the blame. But the one who lost the most of that accident was Soren's sister. She lost her life after all. Soren suffered too, of course. He was crushed by losing somebody so precious to him. Somebody precious, huh? Soren's sister. Wait, there's one more person. There's someone else who must hold a grudge against Soren. Did you figure something out? I think so. I think this somebody else used Gloomsbury to try and get revenge against Soren. Did you say somebody tried to get revenge against Mr. Sprocket, Mr. Wright? The person who manipulated and used Mr. Gloomsbury was Selena's fiancé. I was right! I knew it. All because of that bloody pocket watch. The person who used Mr. Gloomsbury to try and get revenge on Mr. Sprocket, and then finish Mr. Gloomsbury off to silence him, was a man dear to Mr. Sprocket's older sister, Selena Sprocket's fiancé. Not that I'm not positive, but it's certainly possible. His fiancé could have made Gloomsbury attack Ellen to get his revenge on Soren. What? Her fiancé? Order in the court. Order, I say. Yes, it does seem quite believable that Miss Selena Sprocket's fiancé would bear a grudge against Mr. Sprocket for his role in the accident. Exactly, Your Honour. Maybe her fiancé was trying to murder Miss Wyatt, in order to make Mr. Sprocket experience the same pain he'd felt.
Objection!
Ah. Miss Sprocket's fiancé was a surgeon, if memory serves. But the only people who attended the reception were family and staff members. That may be, but then that just means that Miss Sprocket's fiancé must have been among those who attended. What, really? Of course, otherwise, how could he have killed Gloomsbury? Oh, I see what you're doing. This is just another giant bluff, isn't it? Alright, I'll bite. Who exactly do you claim this fiancé to be? Yes, I would like to know as well. Are you sure you're going to be okay, Nick? Maybe. When it comes to suspicious people, there's only one person on my list. I need to find something that connects him to Selena. Oh. This'll help us identify Miss Sprocket's fiancé. I was right! Oh my god. It's not even the fact that I was right about him being her fiancé, it's more the fact that the pocket watch is what led me to that. Please take a look at this photo, Your Honour. That photo. Notice Miss Sprocket's pocket watch. Haven't we seen it somewhere before? Yes, now that you mention it, I do feel as if I've seen it somewhere before. What do you have to say about that, P.S.? I believe we've all seen it. Right here in this very courtroom. Impossible. That's right, the pocket watch in this photo. It's the same pocket watch Mr. Nickety has on him right now. I wonder if inside it is actually just a picture. What? This is clear proof. of a strong connection between Pierce Nickety and Selena Sprocket. No. Well, Mr. Nickety, is this true? Mr. Nickety, you were once engaged to Selena Sprocket. That pocket watch, you keep it as a memento of her, don't you? Mr. Nickety, you plan to rob Mr. Sprocket of his loved one, to make him feel the same pain as you. Isn't that right? But Mr. Sprocket managed to fight back, and knocked Mr. Gloomsbury unconscious. You thought Mr. Gloomsbury was dead, and hid his body in the lantern. But then you noticed Mr. Gloomsbury regain consciousness. And so you finished him off to prevent your plan from being exposed. This is the defense's take on what really happened in this murder case. Mr. Wright, does this mean you wish to officially accuse this witness of the murder of Dumbass Gloomsbury? Yes. Does the defense accuse Mr. Nickety of the murder? Yes. The defense indicts Pierce Nickety on the charge of murdering Dumbass Gloomsbury. Oh my. Mr. Nickety, would you care to respond? He's just been staring at the pendant. Pocket watch. Man, this lawyer just yaps on and on and on. As you guessed, this watch is a memento of Selena. It stopped working at the time of the accident, though. Then, you really are. Now his true colours are gonna shine through. Yes, I was Selena's fiancé, and not just her fiancé, but the surgeon beside her deathbed. Mr. Nickety, why didn't you tell me any of this before? Shut it, you useless prosecutor. I thought you could be of use, but apparently this case was too much for you. What did you say? And if your office hadn't stuck its nose all up in this, I could have swept it under the rug. Not only did you interfere with the case, but you even let me fall under suspicion. That's because you kept trying to cover things up on the sly. But covering things up wasn't your only involvement. The only person who had a motive to use the victim to try and kill Miss Wyatt was you. Oh dear. Oh. Oh, is he going to put it on as a mask? Oh. Malignant tumours. There are malignant tumours in this courtroom. Is that lesions? Oozing with false charges. What the fuck? The tumours are one idiotic lawyer and one useless prosecutor. After the truth is revealed, I'll have the both of you incised from the legal world. That is loud.